What's up, fellas? In the second of today's videos, we're going to be taking a look at the New York Knicks and kind of the options they have here moving forward with their future. It's a very Knicks-centric day today. I talked about Porzingis earlier today in the first video of the day, if you guys want to check out that video. But in this one, it's just going to be a lot of positive Knicks stuff. It's going to be talking about the different options they have, how the emergence of Julius Randle has positively impacted the future of this team, as it looks like they want to keep Julius Randle. So, there's going to be some interesting stuff to talk about here for the future of the Knicks, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's by far the most consistent NBA content on YouTube, so consider subscribing. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well if you're enjoying them, and if you want to hang out with me at various socials outside of these videos, then check out the Linktree link in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about the New York Knicks. So I think the main phrase here, the biggest term that you can put around the Knicks is, well, I guess there's two. One is competence. Whether it be in the front office or whether it be on the court, there's a level of competence that exists for the New York Knicks right now that has not existed since the one really, really good Carmelo team. Other than that, there haven't really been a lot of competent Knicks teams, and you feel like they know what they're doing in the front office. But also the other term that applies here is options. They have a lot of different directions that they can possibly go, and I think this now extends even past 2021 free agency, which I've talked about a lot in the past, even on into now 2022 free agency, which we'll talk about later in this video specific to the Knicks, but also that I'm going to start covering here pretty soon because some of the 2021 free agency stuff, hasn't looked great as some of the other bigger names have kind of signed other places. So let's go ahead and talk about option number one. So the Bradley Beal stuff, as it relates to the Knicks or any other team, has kind of calmed down. I think people are realizing that, it's not necessarily that he wants to stay in Washington. I think that he wants to wait it out past this year because the closer he gets to having an expiring deal, the more leverage he'll have in terms of what team he could possibly go to. If he asks for a trade right now, he doesn't have a lot of options in terms of really pushing himself to a certain situation, whereas once you get closer to an expiring option and you can tell teams that would potentially trade for him, I'm not going to re-sign with you regardless, you start to have more and more options. So I think the long-term plan for Beal has always been, back when he signed the extension, go get your money. You know what I mean? Go get the big deal, figure it out later. As it started to become more and more clear that Washington, albeit they've won 5 games in a row, Washington isn't necessarily a great place for him to be long-term in terms of, having playoff success. So I think, okay, maybe I want to leave, but let's wait it out. Let's get as much leverage as possible. And maybe that leverage situation exists in the 2021 offseason. So let's say we get to the 2021 offseason and Beal's like, you know what? I think it's time. We didn't make the playoffs again in Washington. I'm ready to move on. The Knicks have a really intriguing offer here that's only been increased by the emergence of Julius Randle as like an all-star caliber guy, because up until this point, it had always been young guys and picks because you don't want to include RJ Barrett. You don't want to include Mitchell Robinson, ideally, because if you trade either of those guys, then what are you bringing in Beal for in the first place? So in this scenario, you can put Julius Randle at the center of the trade with young guys with picks, and I think that's a compelling offer to Washington, even with Julius Randle's impending free agency, in 2022, because at least it gives Washington for at least a year something to build around. It's similar to the Oladipo piece in the Harden trade, where it's like, this is the thing that holds like 60%, 70% of the value of the player that you're trading, and then you can come up with another 50% with all these other picks and young players, and you're getting 110% of something rather than 80% because all you're getting is young players, right? So that's kind of the concept, and that's why the Julius Randle part of this is so important, because he has been a borderline all-star caliber guy. He's done it for long enough that it looks legit, and he's done it for long enough where he should have at least some amount of value in a possible star trade. And that's the biggest difference maker between now and the last time that I talked about the possibility that the Knicks have a significantly bright future. So it's not just that it's helping their team this year, but his value has increased significantly from a guy that, it didn't look like was necessarily going to be a long-term piece of the Knicks, and still might not be, but at least has significant trade value. And some reports are saying, they think he's part of a young core here, and maybe that alters their plans with Beal. But still, Julius Randle has been awesome, and I think that, definitely really affects that first option there. The second option here is overall free agency stuff, but again, kind of more of an eye towards 2022. It's unfortunate because 2021, everything kind of matched up for New York, especially now with Julius Randle playing better. They kind of have, the Nets the year before they got Kyrie and Kevin Durant type vibes, where there's a level of competence, there's excitement, there's young guys you could see yourself playing around. Unfortunately, 2021 free agency, that class has really fallen off a cliff, and there's still options, guys like Oladipo and otherwise. But you're not going to be able to go into the summer with 2 max slots and come out with, crazy good value. So what you can also look at is you can say, maybe we go and get someone in 2021, whatever the case may be. The reason that was such a critical year is because RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson both were still on rookie deals. And then as you move towards 2022, Barrett is still on his rookie deal for one more season, but Mitchell Robinson will need a new contract. So you need to deal with that. But 2022 has some interesting trade target or free agency targets, again, that I'm going to cover in an entire video. But when you're looking at the Knicks specifically, Steph Curry could potentially be an option. You don't know what's going to happen there in Golden State over the next couple of years. He seemed like he'd be a lifetime Golden State Warrior, but you never know. Chris Paul is another option as well. There's other guys that I'm not going to get into in this video because this is more about, the concept of the Knicks in 2022 free agency to where they can go out and get somebody. Again, assuming they don't bring in Beal or another star before then, that is another option, which again, we continue to talk about options. Now, all that means is, bottom line, the Knicks, whether it be this offseason or 2022, are going to have a ton of cap space. Beyond that, it's a question mark once you sign Robinson and RJ Barrett to extensions, assuming they're both on the team. But for at least this coming offseason and the following, they have a ton of different directions they can go as it relates to trading their young players and picks, as it relates to going out and getting free agents. And that is such a critical, place to be if you're the Knicks specifically. Now, the only option that I don't think is a thing is if you're trying to be like a top 5, top 4 team in the East, I don't think keeping the roster as is an option. I like RJ Barrett. I like Mitchell Robinson. It's tough to really see what's going on with Obi Toppin right now because he looked good, but he missed a good first part of the year, and it's kind of like what's going on here exactly. But they don't have like a couple of guys that you feel really confident about. Even as good as Julius Randle has been, I don't think you can keep the roster as it is and have enough internal growth right now to be like a top 4, top 5 team. So I think that as the roster is currently constructed is not good enough. And that's really the only option they don't have. But that's fine because they have, extra picks from Dallas. They have all of their own picks. They have an extra pick from the Clippers. They have, all this cap space, all these options. And again, a feeling around the Knicks that I don't think has existed for a while. And that is you could potentially see yourself playing there and doing really well, and the team actually building a competent group around you. And again, all those things are really critical when it comes to free agency, trades, and just the reputation of your roster. We saw it with the Nets. We saw it with the Clippers. We saw it with a lot of different teams, right? So ultimately, we have kind of been here before with New York, right? We've kind of been here before where they have had options, and you can kind of see the blueprint, the Zion, Kyrie, KD blueprint. You can kind of see options there. We've been there. But they've never really taken advantage of those opportunities. And I think it's critical here that they take advantage of this. But it feels different to me. It doesn't feel like a pipe dream. It doesn't feel like they're relying on being the Knicks to go and get free agency guys. It doesn't feel like they're relying on the Knicks to go and get players that would be interested in coming there via trade. It feels like if this was any team in the league, this would be a good opportunity for a star. This would be a good situation for the roster to be in. A competitive roster for this season that has options, has flexibility, has cap space, has free agency options, has trade options, has a borderline all-star caliber guy on the roster right now. Like all those different things, I think make this feel like a different type of situation. And maybe it's weird for me to be like all over the Knicks and be really excited about them. But I think that the league is more fun when the Knicks are good, and I want the Knicks to be good. And I think they're well on their way. I think the changes they made in the front office, I think even the changes they made in the coaching staff, I didn't love the Thibodeau thing. I still don't absolutely love it, but you can't argue that he's done a fantastic job. And, maybe he's a guy that, some players in the league potentially would want to play for moving forward. So as you continue to keep an eye on this Knicks team, just keep in mind that, like, I think this is for real. I don't think it's fluky. I don't think there's anything, I don't think it's surface level. I think it goes deeper than just they're the Knicks. I think it goes deeper than just the prestige of a franchise or wanting to be the guy that turns around the Knicks. I think it just goes to a well put together roster and an organization that clearly has some semblance of a plan here. And it's going to depend on the development of Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett and making sure they make the right moves and health and free agency. But that's the case for every single team. And I think for the first time in a long time, the Knicks have put themselves in position to 4 years from now be really, really good, be a top whatever seed in the East. And that seemed like outside of, awesome, players going there in free agency, that seemed like a really unlikely possibility even a year and a half ago. And to be here now, I applaud them. They're doing a fantastic job. And I can't wait to see, honestly, what they end up doing with this roster moving forward. But that is going to be the end of the second video of today. And I thank you all very much for watching. As I said in the beginning, if you want to check out the Porzingis Mavs trade rumors video, that is the first video today. You guys want to check that out. You can check that out. The box is on screen. You can check out more videos from me if you enjoyed this one. on the channel as a whole. Sub if you are new, if you enjoy the content, leave a like rating, check out the very socials at the bottom of the screen, and yeah, all that good stuff. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Once again, my name is Tucker, and I will see you all next time.